Hi, I'm Stephanie. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're with Michael, who I have not actually quite met yet, and we're going to analyze his signature. So sit back, relax, we're going to have some fun. Before I tell you anything, I just want you to sign your name like you would a check or a legal document, and we'll go from there, and I'll explain a little bit about what it is I do.
Okay. I've never felt so much pressure to sign my name.
Don't overthink it, just sign. Okay, so this is your signature.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so great. Okay, so in the United States and certain parts of North America, you're taught a standard form of printing in the kindergarten, first grade, so to speak. After that, about the third or fourth grade, you're taught cursive. And that's usually, those little placards up around the top of the ceiling at the classroom, and you trace it and you follow it, you do exactly what it says. And as you get older, how you deviate from that standard is your personal statement about yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, your pet peeves, your dumping ground. Most graphologists want multiple forms of writing. They want a grocery list, they want a list, they want a journal entry, a letter, all these things. Part of, I guess, the significance of what I do is that I just want your signature. And just based on that, we'll talk about the things that your signature tell me about you. So having said that, let's get down to business.
All right.
I just want it said, we make a point of me not knowing any of the individuals that you'll see as you watch our channel. This is meant to be as clean of a slate as it could possibly be, and to show that it's not hocus pocus, it's a science. So having said that, okay, I'll just put my glasses on for a second and enjoy this. This is so great. So clearly I can see by your signature you love the water. No, I'm joking. You don't get to see the signature, but I do. So let's talk shop here. So one of my favorite quotes, one of my favorite shows says, when you go through whatever you go through, feel it, get soaked in it till you're pruny, and then be like a goldfish, right? The animal with the shortest memory, right? So you don't forget things, but you try very hard to. So when something really difficult's happened for you, it's emotionally overwhelming. You're very intelligent. You're very intuitive. You tend to act before you think about it. But usually afterwards, you can actually go back and give the reasoning. But I've heard it referred to in science as thin slicing. I've heard a lot of different variations. What comes down to is that you're a person who right away, if you like people or if you don't. Your biggest default to deal with things emotionally is to just keep moving. Like if I don't hold still, it won't get me. I frequently use the phrase like the elephant in the room, right? Mm-hmm. So acting like the elephant's not sitting in the corner, crapping out a cubic ton of manure, as it were, for those things. You're really good at avoiding the elephant in the room a little bit until you can't avoid the elephant in the room, and then that's when things get hard for you. So very impatient, mostly with yourself, occasionally with others. You're pretty self-critical, but if you just keep moving in that whole 6-second memory of the goldfish kind of motto, you'll push past some of that, right? There are a lot of times in your life, a lot of sounds exaggerative, but in those times in your life where you hit really hard points, like real grief points, where you should be mourning or figuring out how to do that in your own style, you're thinking, you can just sit over there. Like the worst kind of forgotten abusive moment with a kid, right? Like, hold that thought, right? And you just keep going, right? So distraction, humor. If you're picking between laughing and crying 100% of the time, you're laughing. Here's the interesting thing. When I was a kid, I thought if chocolate chip cookies taste really good, just the way they are, how much better they would be if you didn't put the salt in them, right? And so I did it, like as a teenager, the advanced, great, knowledge of a teenager, and I did it, and they taste like garbage. And I realized how very, very necessary the salt is. There are times for you emotionally when those who are closest to you can really hit that point where they look good in theory, that cookie, but you're needing to stop and add the salt, right? You don't feel things halfway. There's no middle ground for you. You're either soaking in it till you're pruny and or you're like dry as the Sahara Desert. There's just no middle ground, right? So you're all in. You adore someone, or you're working on not admitting that you hate them, right? Like you're just playing nice in public and you move along, right? So not a vicious bone in your body. Sometimes you have a really hard time defending yourself emotionally. And what happens there is then you just play nice and keep moving, right? So you are much more likely to ghost someone, I can use that phrase all the way around, versus having a confrontation with them, right? That is very much a work in progress for you. You know how to adult and be responsible for that which you are responsible for. But there are times that's a little begrudgingly, right? Like, you're married, right? Today? Okay, I thought I saw a ring, but
wrong hand, but yeah.
Okay. But either way, like in your relationship, sometimes I would venture to say that she would say she is the adult, so to speak, or the more responsible one that way, right? So it doesn't cast aspersions on you, because sometimes someone really needs to be the comic relief, right? But sometimes when you refrain from feeling those feelings that are appropriate to be feeling, it creates a pressure cooker, right? And ironically, this huge tidal wave, right, is about not being flatline, right? You don't want to. You want to be flatline, but like on a high note, right?
Yeah.
But even the finest sopranos can't hold the note that what is it? F B above upper C or something. I don't even remember what the note is, but to crack glass, right? You can only hit that for so long, right, before it resonates. And that's a real message for you, right? This finding middle ground, finding low ground, right? Giving yourself a chance to feel through your feelings and not just keep running, right? Which may very well be a literal thing for you. Like just keep moving is the literal thing. So tell me what's represented here. Usually I do this right at the beginning, but I just wanted to dip right in because it's great.
Well, and question 2, I don't know how much I'm allowed to...
Your name, we'll use your name.
Right, but I mean, like, sorry, but as far as asking you questions and bringing up stuff.
Go for it.
So you talked about, like, American cursive. So
right.
I grew up internationally, and I moved here in the 5th grade, and they tried to teach me American cursive, and I couldn't learn it. And so I don't know if that means anything, but, like, I remember one specific time writing a letter or word over and over again, taking it to the teacher, and they kept telling me it was wrong, and I just couldn't figure it out. But I don't know what that means.
Well, it's interesting because I've lived in Europe, and I have family who's from Europe, and so if anything, I've been inculcated a bit in all of it. So I've actually done this in Spain and in Greece for those who write in English in Greece.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that.
Because I can't do it with Cyrillic. I'm sorry, I failed. So it's interesting. I haven't found that to be it's still the same shapes I'm looking for. It's not so much how the direction you wrote it in, so much as because it's not even really letters I'm looking at clearly, right? Yeah. Like I've got your signature. So what is represented here? Okay. What is your name as you were?
So my name is Michael Graham.
Okay.
But history, I don't know if you care. I think I vaguely remember my signature being my name at one point, and then it quickly became my initials, and then it turned into that.
Right. And so this is interesting because I would almost ask if you're famous, but I don't, this is kind of on the level of an autograph, but I always find it interesting the more, I've done this for over 30 years. And sometimes the more elevated a lifestyle someone leads, I guess, compared to what my lifestyle is, right? I will oftentimes feel like, life always comes full circle, right? There was a time where it was so prevalent for people to be unable to read and write that they would just mark with an X, right? And then we get to this level where people are educated and have done so much, all these things, that in our impatience to just have it all, we just mark it X again, right? But with our flair on it. So this is interesting. For me, this is about a couple things. So you do like having a plan, not that you ever really follow it, because you just want that as a litmus, like where's our base point? Okay. Yeah. And then you fully expect a freestyle. The plan is like a security blanket for you. It's just, what should we expect? Okay, great. I'm going to not follow any of that. And you'll do it exactly how you plan to do it. You will listen to others. This is what will happen, okay? You will listen to others and their feedback. You'll do it extraordinarily graciously. You are listening, you are giving eye contact, you are in, and then you will smile sweetly and go along doing exactly how you're going to do it in the first place anyways.
Absolutely.
But you, the politeness factor, like you mean it genuinely. It's not a disrespect. It's to prevent personal claustrophobia. You know, like when others tell you what you should do and how you should do it, it is very emotionally invasive for you. Like you have a really hard time taking direction that way. You have to internalize it or you will completely disregard it. Like what is that happy phrase, cut off your nose to spite your face? Like it can get to that level. As a little kid, defiant would be a word. But part of it is, right, and that wears with this happy-go-lucky, like gentle heart, right? It is the desire to not be controlled. You have no desire to control anyone else. In fact, you're the first person to sign up and cheerlead if someone's like, we're going to do it this way. And it sounds so outlandish. And you're like, let's. You know what I mean? Like, I'm right there. Where do I buy my ticket? It is that same nature that allowed you to come and do this. So thank you. Yeah. I'll take it. The thing that I really love is this. So you have an appreciation for art and beautiful things, like and things that you are quick to recognize when someone else can do something that you can't do. You have every enjoyment in acknowledging that. It's just no skin off your nose. It doesn't degrade you as a man. There's just no ego about that, right? Like you, in fact, seeing others do well really does things for you, right? Emotionally, you really appreciate that. And intellectually, you do too. In fact, it sort of adds to the general greatness of your life. Like if others are doing well, life's worth living, right? And the converse is true for you too. Like that opposite, that when others aren't doing well around you, somehow it's your personal failing, right? So in that way, when I talked about how tender-hearted you are, all of that's very genuine. So when others aren't doing well around you, even if it's things they're working through, even if it's their just own personal struggle, it is as if it's yours, and you have a harder time shaking that off almost than your own things. If I were to give feedback, and it's free, so maybe that's what it's worth, nothing. But if I were to give feedback, there has to come a point where for you and your personality, I would suggest, because I would never presume to tell you what to do, and I'm not a therapist, but I would say this. You have to, I found that things under pressure either continue to build pressure until they blow up, or they get a pressure valve release, right? You have to find your own way to get that release, and that's not just through humor, right? Because you have this tender heart. You have these deeply held emotions. You are the first person to be kind to complete strangers, to people you don't like. And it's not a phoniness. It's an inability. There's just not a malicious bone in your body. So this inability to deliberately hurt someone, that's really hard for you, right? The place that can happen for you is when someone confronts you, wants something specific from you, and it triggers that internal button of you don't get to control me. I say when, I say how, I call the shots, you don't get to do any of that. It's really hard though for those who are in closest with you, because by virtue of you letting them in your lives, there is a certain amount that is that appropriate emotional expectation we have on those we're having close and intimate relationships with, whether it's your marriage, whether it's family, you know what I mean, siblings, kids. There comes this point where, and that was hard for you. that autonomy of like, I'm just me. You know what I mean? I imagine this little kid with his hands on his, just like doing the power stance, like literally that is in so many ways. And so what pleases you the most, while you appreciate these elevated, sophisticated, all those things, truly what pleases you the most are those things that are simplest, that are the most childlike in certain ways, cost the least. What happens is some of your choices can be costly without you previously considering them. And a budget is a hard thing for you to live by. It is quite exacting. So we talked about the plan. We talked about you are always moving forward. So sometimes you have a real, like, you'll laugh in the moment. You'll be there, but you're not completely rooted in it, right? It's that 6-second goldfish moment where we keep pushing forward, right? If you're responsible for the moment, but the truth is that you avoid that as much as you can. If it's something you instigated, then you will start it, you will do it, you'll complete it. There are times that you get a lot of different projects going though, and you are not good at finishing what you start. Part of it is it loses interest. Part of it is you've overcommitted, because saying no can be a hard thing for you if someone asks it of you, right? That generosity of spirit, again, that tenderheartedness, you want to help, you want to show up, you want to do the good thing. The intention is there. It becomes really an opportunity and an important place for you that those that you really do feel the deepest about, feel like they're prioritized that way by you saying, I really wish I could. Time just won't allow, right? If you have to come up with a phrase that makes you not own it quite so much, but feels like a gentle no, I would recommend that as a practicing point, but it's just a recommendation. At the end of the day, there are those in your life, based on what you've written here, that feel sometimes like they are not enough of a priority to you as much as you are to you. And that, hearing that is very disconcerting. I mean, anyone, but you especially, because of how tenderhearted you are, and childlike in your emotional approach as well. Like this kind of a purity personality, but genuine, like no malice of intent. Not this. There's not this premeditated, I'm looking out for me, and if I think of you, here's your gold star on your forehead. That's not how you are. There are times that there are those who perceive you that way 100%. And when they get frustrated with you, and when they have an expectation from you, and then they get the brick wall because you're like, no, I say when, I say how, you do not control me. I'm working on controlling me. How are you going to get to control me? That's where they go back to that, no, you're selfish. And I think becomes this important point to internalize, like whatever game you have to play with yourself to make it more acceptable, whatever internal conversation needs to occur, you counsel with you more than you counsel with anyone else. That's a little bit of a dangerous thing, right? In a marriage, like someone wants to know what you're thinking, and you're like, you disconnect to not deal with the hard thing. So you're disconnecting, and then you come back and reconnect when you've decided the next thing that will soothe you when it gets too much, right? And they're like, hey, wait, you're a racer, but I'm not, and I can't keep up. And where's the thought process gone? Okay, wait, we're going to Budapest. Why? Like, I'm just saying, but I mean, literally, like, yeah, if you could travel, if you could try, what's that great book about, around the world in 80 days or whatever, that, as I show my, but like that idea is extraordinarily enticing to you. That's like a buffet someone set out to try every culinary, all the things. You are very, as a superpower, like extremely willing to, in that way, if it's a good time, you're willing to pivot and like, okay, what are we going to do? Like you say you want the plan, what's the plan? And then when you don't follow the plan, that can be frustrating, but at least those who are close to you know that you can, pivot in a moment's notice, that you can say, okay, the menu's going to change. All right, what are we cooking now? You know what I mean? It is very kind of polarized, right? Just the opposite. So in the lava pits or you're in Antarctica, you know, right? Like you're in the ice flows of glaciers. That it's gonna be, and it has been most of your life, this struggle to find the middle ground, right? It doesn't mean that you don't get to be spontaneous and creative yourself and enthusiastic and passion driven. It means that you also get to use all that considerable set of intellect, enthusiasm, all the things, to then show that very clearly to your wife, to those who are closest to you, that that they matter, that you want to as passionately cheerlead what they're enthusiastic about as you want them to cheerlead you, right? I think above all else, if I were to, like, you have so much intellectually. I don't know if you have how many degrees you do or don't have, but if you don't have degrees, you really need to think about that. I know it's hard to hold still to do that, but you have so much intellect. I know there are multiple ways to really use intelligence. If you don't work for yourself, part of the reason why it probably might be about self-discipline or staying organized enough to make that. It's not about capability or actual ideas about having your own business, right? But I would encourage you to contemplate that and doing that which you need to. And right now it's still work in progress for you. Like that self-discipline, you're my fire starter. If I was going to have a business and I was like, okay, we're going to hire, you're going to be my fire starter. You're going to be my brainstormer. You're going to start it all. You're going to give me the idea and you're going to give me the skeleton. And then I'm going to get my seriously diligent, always on it. I set my metronome to that. I'm going to get the person who knows how to consistently do that. There isn't enough enjoyment and reward in that place of keeping pace for you to keep you focused on that. And so it becomes this opportunity in your life to find the middle ground. I think above all else, you have the passion, you know how to start the fire, you know how to do all these things. Let's tend it. Let's see if we can keep it burning as brightly and not burning through, but like you can't cook on that initial flame, right? It'll keep you warm initially, but then you have to back off once you've gotten the heat, right? There is something to be said for a fire after it's had a little chance to die down. It cooks your food. It will bank and stay there and keep you warm in the long haul of a desperate situation. There is so much importance, I guess, if I were to share anything above all else. There is so much importance in all the kaleidoscope and spectrum of emotions and allowing ourselves to feel them and then, you know, mastering the ones that are the dangerous, right? The rage, the whatever, right? But recognizing what we feel and then honestly moving forward, right? And I think you've mastered some of the high notes exquisitely and you recognize the low notes. I think that you have an opportunity to find the middle ground, to also allow some of the harder feelings to be felt and worked through, right? You care about people. I think sometimes they have no idea just how much, sincerely. And some of it is not for what you say, but some of what you choose to do in the effort to not hurt about some of the things that your life has served up for you, right? And I think you would be surprised and shocked at how willing people are to let you have a space to deal with any of those things and feeling like they get included too, right? I think that keeping your own counsel is a rough position to put yourself in, you know what I mean? I think you'd be surprised at how much your life would shift and how much energy that you use running you could use towards all of the things that you're passionate about. Thanks so much for joining us. As always, it's important to get to know yourself, to find new ways to stretch yourself, strive to be better. As always, If you liked what you've seen here today, please hit the subscribe button, like and subscribe, hit the bell, and be notified when we have new episodes. Be good to yourself, be good to your people, and we'll see you next time.